I am heavy bored.
I may say that the male is entirely hostile. No!
Resources.
Life, friends, is boring. We must not say so.
This is Andrew Wittstadt, and you are listening to another episode of Heavy Bored. And I'm trying something a little different today. I'm putting together this, as I revamp the podcast here, and I change the way the original structure of the podcast was supposed to be. Listeners will know it was originally me and Sophie, and now it's just me left on the podcast. So what I'm doing now is I was trying to revamp it, and I flailed a little bit for a while. But what I was really trying to do is start to be, okay, so I want to be able to make this podcast kind of a bunch of different things, where I want it to be, a place where people can come for literary discussion, things like that. I want it to be a place where people come to talk about books and writing and feel comfortable expressing themselves in so many ways. But I also was thinking about a few episodes I wanted to do, and I thought about maybe extending that conversation for patrons on Patreon here, and really going into some of the more cultural stuff I see happening. So I thought about doing something like going over books that I've read or I'm currently reading, going over the things that, and this is beyond just the podcast schedule. Obviously I'm not reading just the podcast books. I'm reading more than that on average, and I usually keep those to myself, but I do keep a book log, and I thought it might be fun to go through some of the stuff that I've read in the last couple months here, and give you my thoughts on them. And some of these titles, obviously, are on the podcast. Some of these titles are not. Some of these I've tweeted about or posted on social media about, all that kind of stuff, but I'm going to get into it a little bit here. And I thought also about doing an episode, so listeners, let me know if you like this. I thought about, I like John McWhorter, and McWhorter just put out an interesting article, which all his articles are usually interesting, although I do have a little bit of an issue with his writing style, but that's neither here nor there, about poetry and hip-hop. I thought about doing another bonus episode on that, so I'll keep thinking about that, but let me know if that's something you're interested in. If you would like me to go through where I think somebody like McWhorter, again, keep in mind this is him stepping out of his realm of expertise to talk about poetry and hip-hop in this regard, but there's some things he said that I thought were apt, and then there's some things he said where I think he's being a little too generous about the differences between the art crafts, and I think he's also naive in terms of who's listening to like the people that are listening to hip hop are not the same people that were reading poetry, by the way. Again, I let me know if you're interested in that. I think I could go through that article and just kind of give my thoughts on it. If you're interested in things like that, I'm thinking about doing more bonus episodes of just me, going over thoughts and things that I don't share as much, and this is just for subscribers, so you guys get a little treat here. But I had this idea to go over a couple books that I've read this summer, and I do keep a log, so I have a list, and I do write about a lot of this, so I'll read some of what I wrote and then talk about it a little further and all that kind of stuff. But if you like this, let me know. Send me an email, heavyboardpodcast@gmail.com. If you want more of this, let me know. But I think it should be a lot of fun. So here we are. And I'm recording this on August 30th, 2023. Those that don't know, but this is another episode of Heavy Bored, a little bonus here. Okay, so you guys know, if you listen to the podcast, that yes, I did Cities of the Plain, Crush, Casino Royale. Those have been the last couple books we've done for the podcast here. But I've also, that's not all I'm doing. That's not all I'm reading. So I thought about this. I thought about doing an episode on Blood Meridian because I was doing all those Cormac McCarthy novels right after his death. I hadn't planned on doing that, right? I tried to explain that I was just in the middle of reading his Border trilogy, and then, of course, he dies, and it sparked me to start doing episodes on books in that trilogy. And I thought about doing Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, and I did read that in this summer, this July, and I took notes on it. I took notes on it as if I was going to do, kind of a standard solo episode with me. But then I read it. And here's my thing. Okay. I think the problem with my initial read of Blood Meridian, and I had never read it before, listeners, that it was so hyped up, that the reputation is such that I was expecting it to blow me away, and it didn't really. I'm also not a huge fan of McCarthy's style. I think it's a little too cold for a lot of what he's doing, and because it's so cold, some of the emotional resonance gets lost in it. But basically, my initial take on Blood Meridian here when I read it, and this is after I read a number of McCarthy's things that I enjoyed, is that if you're hearing this, it's because you are listening to the free public feed of Heavy Board. To get complete, uncensored, uninterrupted, full access to this podcast, become a subscriber at patreon.com/heavyboard. That's right, Heavy Board is made possible by subscribers like you. For less than 1 cup of coffee per month, you will receive private access to uncensored, full-length episodes, Jerk Shop, heavy bonus content, subscribers-only AMA episodes, bonus extended interviews, and more. Come join the conversation today at patreon.com/heavyboard.